Wishing you good health and happiness today as well. Before the story begins, please consider subscribing, liking, and turning on notifications. Your support means a lot. If you leave a greeting in the comments, I sincerely hope every good fortune finds its way to you. I first met her on a rainy November night, in a narrow alley in Xiandong, where the streetlights were few and far between. Back then, I had no idea who she was, why she appeared before me on that particular night, in that particular alley. Well, appeared might not be the right word, but after I learned the truth, I became certain of one thing: it wasn't a coincidence. Why would someone I'd never met in all my 23 years suddenly show up in my path? This is the story that began that night. The sun had barely set, but darkness had already swallowed the streets. Only the glow of streetlights stretched across the wet asphalt. Junhyuk checked the delivery bag strapped to the back of his motorcycle, feeling the drizzle seep through his helmet. He should have worn a rain jacket. His shoulders and back were slowly getting soaked. Just one more delivery, he muttered to himself as he gripped the handlebars. It was 9 at night, and orders kept coming during the dinner rush. But today his body felt heavier than usual. He'd worked the graveyard shift at the convenience store until dawn, then sat through morning classes. He'd skipped lunch and started deliveries at 4 in the afternoon. No wonder he felt like he was falling apart. He checked the address on the delivery app. Xiandong, Zhongno District. The alleys there were too narrow for a motorcycle. He let out a short sigh and started the engine. He parked his motorcycle at the entrance to Xiandong and slung the delivery bag over his shoulder. The rain was coming down harder now. He pulled his hood up and stepped into the narrow alley. The streets, a mix of traditional Hanok houses and old Western-style buildings, had sparse lighting that made it hard to see where he was stepping. The wet stone pavement was slippery. Water seeped into his shoes, but he didn't care. He just walked faster. 402. Where's 402? He was mumbling the address to himself when his foot caught on something. Something soft but heavy. He looked down and saw a worn cloth bag lying on the ground. At that moment, he heard slow footsteps a few paces ahead. When Junhyuk looked up, an elderly woman was walking deeper into the alley. Her back was hunched, her steps slow. She wore a faded brown jacket and rubber shoes. In the rain, she looked even more frail. "Excuse me," Junhyuk called out, but the old woman kept walking as if she hadn't heard. He picked up the bag and ran after her. "Ma'am, you dropped this." The old woman slowly turned around. Small eyes peered at Junhyuk from between deep wrinkles. She looked well past 70. Rainwater ran down her white hair and dripped along her cheeks. "Oh." She took the bag from him. Her hands were thin and frail, barely able to grip it. "Thank you." Her voice was low and quiet. For words of gratitude, they sounded strangely flat. But her eyes held steady on his face. "It's really coming down. Where are you headed?" Junhyuk asked. Instead of answering, the old woman gestured with her chin toward the end of the alley. There stood an old 2-story building. Not a single light in the windows. Just darkness. "You live there?" The old woman nodded. Junhyuk was about to hand over the bag and leave when he stopped. Looking down, he noticed one of her rubber shoes had come off. Her bare foot was touching the cold stone ground. "Ma'am, your shoe." Without hesitation, he knelt down. His jeans soaked through on the wet ground, but he didn't care. He picked up the fallen shoe and placed it neatly in front of her foot. "Here, please put it on." The old woman didn't move. When Junhyuk looked up, her gaze was fixed on his face. Her expression was blank, but something flickered in her eyes. He couldn't tell what it was. Young people shouldn't be kneeling on the ground." Her voice was low, not scolding, not grateful. Just stating a fact. "It's fine. I'm already soaked anyway." Junhyuk smiled as he stood up. The old woman slowly slipped her foot into the shoe. Just then, his phone buzzed in his pocket. A notification from the delivery app. "Delivery delayed," flashed on the screen. "I'm sorry, I'm in the middle of a delivery." Junhyuk bowed quickly and turned away. After a few steps, he glanced back. The old woman was still standing there, watching him. Her rain-soaked figure glowed faintly under the streetlight. For some reason, he felt worried about her. But if he was late with the delivery, he'd get a bad rating, and bad ratings meant less income next month. He forced himself to look away and started running again. After completing the delivery to Unit 402, Junhyuk passed by that spot again. On his way out, the old woman was gone. Only faint footprints remained on the wet stone pavement. He paused and looked at the building she had pointed to. Still no lights. The windows were covered in dust, and a weathered sign reading, "Vacant," was taped to the entrance. Strange, she definitely said she lived there. But he didn't have time to think about it. His phone buzzed again. A new delivery request. Sungbuk District, 3.7 kilometers away. Junhyuk put his helmet back on and climbed onto his motorcycle. The rain kept falling. The night was getting darker. Before starting the engine, he looked back at the alley one more time. Nothing. Just the sound of rain and the glow of streetlights. That night, Junhyuk didn't get home until after midnight. As he showered and peeled off his wet clothes, the old woman's eyes kept coming back to him. That gaze hidden behind her expressionless face, as if she were searching for something, or confirming something. Rain tapped against the window. Junhyuk roughly dried his hair and lay down on his narrow bed. He had an early class tomorrow, deliveries tomorrow night, and the convenience store shift the morning after. As he closed his eyes, he wondered, did she make it home okay? Does she actually live somewhere else? Not in that empty building? He was curious, but there was no way to find out. Just a stranger passing through, he told himself. That's what he thought at the time. Junhyuk's days were always packed tight. He'd get up at 8, head to school, and as soon as his 2 o'clock class ended, he'd open the delivery app. He'd make deliveries until 10 at night, and 3 times a week. He'd work the graveyard shift at the convenience store from midnight to 6 in the morning. 23 years old, a senior in college, graduation was just 1 semester away. But job hunting was the last thing on his mind. Next month's rent was more urgent. His student loan interest was overdue, and his living expenses were always scraping the bottom. He couldn't ask his parents for help. His father had passed away when Junhyuk was a sophomore in high school, and his mother was barely getting by running a small restaurant in the countryside. If anything, Junhyuk tried to send her a little money every month. "Junhyuk, when's the last time you ate?" his classmate Minsu asked when they ran into each other at the library. Junhyuk gave an awkward smile. "I had some kimbap earlier. That was hours ago. It's 4 o'clock now." Minsu sighed and reached for his wallet. Junhyuk waved him off. "I'm fine. I'll grab something later while I'm doing deliveries." "You're gonna collapse doing this every day." "No, I won't. I'm tough." Junhyuk laughed and stood up from his seat. He could feel Minsu's worried eyes on him, but he pretended not to notice. He couldn't afford to accept anyone's concern. Concern made him soft. As he left the library, Junhyuk checked his phone. A new delivery request had come in. Jongno District, near Ixien-dong, where he'd been the night before. The old woman suddenly came to mind. The soaked faded jacket, the fallen rubber shoe, and those eyes. She had definitely said she lived in that building. But the sign on the door said, "Vacant." It was strange, but before he could think about it further, another delivery notification popped up. At 5 in the afternoon, Junhyuk headed back to Ixien-dong. This delivery was to a different alley. But for some reason, he couldn't stop thinking about the spot from the night before. After finishing the delivery, he deliberately walked into that alley. In daylight, it felt completely different from the night. Sunlight slanted between the old buildings, and people were coming and going from a few small shops. He stood in front of the building, the old 2-story structure the woman had pointed to. It looked even more run down in daylight. The windows were covered in grime, and the "vacant" sign on the door was half torn by the wind. This was no place for anyone to live. The electricity and water looked like they'd been cut off long ago. Looking for something? A voice came from behind. He turned to see a middle-aged woman, who appeared to be a shop owner from next door. "Oh, no, I was just wondering if anyone lives here." "Here? It's been empty for over 3 years. Nobody even knows who owns it. Just sitting here abandoned." 3 years? Yep. Sometimes homeless people used to sneak in to sleep, but not anymore. Junhyuk tilted his head. The old woman had definitely said she lived there. Was she homeless? Or had she just said anything that came to mind? "Have you by any chance seen an elderly woman around here? Wearing a brown jacket and rubber shoes? An old lady? I don't know. There are a lot of elderly folks in this neighborhood. Can't say I noticed anyone in particular." The woman went back inside her shop, uninterested. Junhyuk stood there for a while, staring at the building. That's when his phone rang. It was his mother. "Mom, Junhyuk, have you eaten?" "Yeah, I ate." "Liar. I can tell by your voice you haven't been eating properly." "I really did." "How's the restaurant, Mom?" He heard a sigh through the phone. "Business has been slow lately. But I'm fine. Don't worry about me." "Okay, I have to go. Got a delivery. I'll call you later." "All right, take care of yourself." After hanging up, Junhyuk looked up at the sky for a moment. The sun was beginning to set. Time to get back to work. He put on his helmet and climbed onto his motorcycle. Just as he was about to start the engine, he felt something. Like someone was watching him. He turned to look toward the end of the alley. No one was there, just an old awning flapping in the wind. Probably just his imagination. Junhyuk shook his head and started the engine. But the feeling wouldn't go away. The sense that someone was watching him. Just like the old woman's gaze the night before, searching, verifying. That night, after finishing his deliveries and returning to his tiny studio apartment, Junhyuk lay on his bed staring at the ceiling. He was exhausted, but sleep wouldn't come. Who was that old woman? Why had she pointed to an empty building? And why couldn't he stop thinking about her eyes? Questions piled on top of questions. She was just a stranger he happened to meet, he told himself. But something nagged at him. Something he couldn't put into words. A strange pull he couldn't explain. Moonlight spilled through the window. Junhyuk closed his eyes. Tomorrow would be the same as today. A few days passed. Junhyuk was still running from one thing to the next. The old woman faded from his thoughts. That day was especially cold. Mid-November, and the wind had teeth. Junhyuk bundled up in his thin padded jacket and headed out for deliveries. It was around 7 in the evening. He just picked up an order from a restaurant in Jongno, and was on his way to the delivery address. As he walked through a narrow alley, he saw a small crowd gathered up ahead. Curious, he parked his motorcycle and walked over. Through the gaps between people, he could see someone lying on the ground. A faded brown jacket, rubber shoes. Junhyuk's heart stopped. "Ma'am." He pushed through the crowd. It was her, the same old woman he'd met on that rainy night. She was conscious but pale as paper. Her lips had turned blue. "Ma'am, are you okay?" Junhyuk dropped to his knees and supported her. Her body was ice cold. Her clothes were too thin to hold any warmth. "Move aside." "Do you know her?" a man next to him asked. Junhyuk nodded quickly. "Yes, she's someone I know." He had no idea why he said that. He barely knew her, but in that moment, he couldn't pretend otherwise. "Did anyone call 119? "Not yet." Junhyuk pulled out his phone and dialed emergency services. After giving them the location, he took off his jacket and draped it over her. "Ma'am, hang in there. Help is coming." The old woman slowly opened her eyes. Her unfocused gaze searched for his face. "You?" "Yes, it's me. I picked up your bag the other night, remember?" She didn't answer. Instead, her frail hand reached out and gripped his wrist. Her grip was so weak it barely registered. "Why? What? Why do you keep?" Her words trailed off, and her eyes closed again. Junhyuk shook her gently in panic. Ma'am." Thankfully, she hadn't lost consciousness. She was still breathing. She was just too weak to speak. The ambulance arrived about 10 minutes later. During that time, Junhyuk stayed by her side, holding her cold hand. The crowd slowly dispersed. The paramedics lifted her onto a stretcher. Junhyuk asked them, "Where are you taking her?" "The emergency room near Jongno District Health Center." "Are you coming along?" Junhyuk hesitated. He had pending deliveries. The bag still had food that needed to be dropped off. If he was late, his rating would tank, and it would affect his income for the month. But the old woman's pale face lingered in his mind. Yes, I'll come. Before climbing into the ambulance, he opened the delivery app and canceled the order. Under the cancellation reason, he typed, "personal emergency." There would be a penalty. But there was nothing else he could do. Inside the ambulance, Junhyuk sat beside her. An oxygen mask covered her face, still ghostly pale. Her wrinkled hand lay motionless on the white sheet. He didn't know who she was. Her name, her age, where she lived, nothing. He knew absolutely nothing. So why did he feel this way? At the emergency room, she was taken into an exam room. Junhyuk waited outside. About an hour later, a doctor came out. "Are you her guardian?" "No, I'm just someone who knows her." "Is she okay?" "Hypothermia and malnutrition. It's not critical, but she'll need to stay for a few days." "The problem is, if we don't have a guardian's contact information." I'll leave my number. I'm not her guardian, but I'll take responsibility for now." The doctor gave him a curious look but didn't ask further questions. Junhyuk wrote down his phone number and headed to the hospital room. She lay in a small room, an IV drip attached to her arm. Her eyes were closed, but she looked better than before. Junhyuk sat in the chair beside her bed. Her belongings had been placed in a small bag, the worn cloth bag, the rubber shoes, and a small, weathered notebook. The notebook was half open. He knew he shouldn't look, but his eyes caught the writing on the page. Co. Junhyuk, 23 years old, senior at Hansing University. His breath caught. His name was written there. His age, his school. Why? How? Who was this woman? Junhyuk stared at the notebook. His hands were shaking. Below his name, there was more. Father Co. Jongho, deceased 2019. Mother Kim Youngsoon, residing in Jecheon, Chungbuk Province. Runs a restaurant, residence studio apartment in a Namdong, Sungbuk District. Junhyuk's face went rigid. This was no coincidence. This woman knew about him. She had investigated him. Why? For what purpose? Fear crept in. Was she a con artist? Was he caught up in some kind of crime? All sorts of thoughts raced through his mind. He was about to flip through more pages when the old woman's eyes opened. She looked at Junhyuk, then at the notebook in his hands. "Ma'am, what is this?" Junhyuk's voice trembled. The old woman didn't answer. Instead, she weakly lifted her hand toward the notebook. "Give it back. Why is my name in here? Why do you know about me?" The old woman closed her eyes, as if avoiding the question. "Ma'am." Junhyuk's voice rose. She kept her eyes shut. Later. Later? What do you mean?" "I can't tell you now. Later. I'll explain everything." Her voice came out thin and exhausted. Junhyuk felt both angry and helpless. He didn't know how to process any of this. "Ma'am, I'm scared. If a complete stranger has my personal information, wouldn't anyone be scared?" "I know. Then please tell me, why do you know about me?" She slowly opened her eyes. Her gaze met his directly. "Your father." "What?" "It's because of your father." Junhyuk felt like his heart had stopped. His father. The father who died 4 years ago. What connection could this woman possibly have to him? "You know my father?" Her eyes closed again. It seemed like she had no strength left to speak. "Ma'am?" No response. Junhyuk leaned closer. She appeared to have fallen asleep. Or rather, she was too weak to continue. Junhyuk stood there for a long time. His mind was a storm. His father, Co. Jongho, a high school PE teacher. Kind, hardworking. He passed away in 2019 after a battle with cancer. What could his father have had to do with this old woman? Junhyuk thought he knew everything about his father's life. But maybe there were things he didn't know. As he left the room, he reached for his phone. He almost called his mother. But he stopped. He didn't know anything for certain yet. He didn't want to worry her for nothing. He sat down in the hospital lobby, lost in thought. Who was this woman? What was her connection to his father? Why had she been researching him? The questions spiraled endlessly. That night, back in his studio, Junhyuk lay in bed staring at the ceiling. He was exhausted, but sleep wouldn't come. He thought of his father's face. His father always smiled. He never let on when things were hard. It wasn't until Junhyuk was in high school that he realized how tight money was. His father had hidden that too. Could there have been bigger secrets? The next morning, Junhyuk went back to the hospital. The old woman was awake. Her face looked better than the day before. You came. She spoke first. Junhyuk sat in the chair beside the bed. Ma'am, you stopped mid-sentence yesterday. What's your connection to my father? She turned to look out the window. November sunlight slanted into the room. Your father was a good man. I know. I already know that. No. Better than you know. Junhyuk frowned. She continued slowly. It was 25 years ago. I had lost everything. Money, family, a place to live. I was ready to die on the streets. That's when your father found me. He helped me for no reason at all. He gave me money. He found me a place to sleep. For over a month, Junhyuk listened in silence. Because of him, I survived. I got back on my feet. But I never got the chance to repay him. And then, he was gone. A faint tremor passed through her eyes. So I came looking for you. His son. I couldn't repay him, so instead, she looked at Junhyuk. I wanted to help you. Junhyuk replayed her words in his mind. His father helped an old woman 25 years ago. That old woman was her. And now she had come looking for him. The story made sense, but something still felt off. Ma'am, I'm going to be honest with you. You say you want to help me, but looking at you right now, I feel like I should be the one helping you. Junhyuk glanced around the room. A cheap shared ward, an IV drip, an old bed. Her only belongings were that tattered cloth bag. Ma'am, you don't have money. You don't even have a home. You collapsed from malnutrition. How can you possibly help me? She smiled. Barely. Just a slight lift at the corners of her mouth. Is that what you think? What? You think I have no money? Junhyuk was speechless. Something in her gaze shifted. She wasn't the frail old woman from a moment ago. There was something else behind those eyes. I can't tell you yet. But remember this. She turned toward the window. Don't judge people by how they look. Just like your father didn't judge me. A few days later, the old woman was discharged. Junhyuk tried to pay the hospital bill, but she firmly refused. Save your money. I'm fine. But ma'am, don't worry. I have money. He had no idea where she could possibly have money. But she didn't offer any explanation. On the day she was discharged, Junhyuk handed her a slip of paper with his phone number. Ma'am, this is my number. Call me if you ever need anything. She took the paper. She stared at it for a long moment before slipping it into her pocket. Thank you. Where are you going? Home? Yes. Not that building in Ixieandong, right? She looked at him. There was a flicker of surprise in her eyes. How do you? I went there a few days ago. It's empty. She was silent for a moment. Then she said quietly, I have another place. Don't worry. He couldn't tell if she was telling the truth. But he couldn't push any further. Outside the hospital, as he saw her off, Junhyuk said, Ma'am, I still have a lot of questions. About my father and everything. Can we meet again sometime to talk more? She nodded. Next time, I'll contact you. And just like that, she walked away. Her slow figure grew smaller as she disappeared down the alley. Junhyuk stood there for a long time. A week passed. No word from her. Junhyuk returned to his grinding routine. Classes, deliveries, night shifts. Day after day, like clockwork. But somewhere in the back of his mind, She was always there. Was she eating? Was she staying warm? What if she collapsed again? Then one day, everything fell apart. Junhyuk, we need to talk. The convenience store manager called him aside. His expression was grim. Yes, sir, I checked the CCTV from last night. Looks like you were taking money from the register. Junhyuk's face went white. What? I never did that. It's on camera. Around 3 in the morning. You opened the register and took something out. That was. I was sorting coins. They were mixed up, so I separated them. I didn't take any money. The manager shook his head. I'm not going to report you to the police. But you're done here. I can't keep you on after this. Sir, I swear I didn't do it. I've worked here for over 2 years. Why would I do something like that? That's exactly why it's hard to believe you. You've been here long enough to know exactly where the money is. Junhyuk felt crushed. He hadn't taken anything, but the manager didn't believe him. By the end of the day, he was out of a job. Without even receiving his paycheck for the month. Back in his studio, Junhyuk slid down the wall and sat on the floor. His mind went blank. The convenience store job paid about 800,000 won a month. Without it, he could barely cover rent. Deliveries alone weren't enough, and if word got around, finding another job would be nearly impossible. Once you're labeled a thief, it sticks. His phone rang. An unknown number. Hello? It's me. A low, quiet voice. It was her. Ma'am, how did you get my number? You gave it to me. What's wrong? Junhyuk paused. His throat tightened. Nothing. I'm fine. You're lying. I can hear it in your voice. He hesitated, then told her everything. About being accused. About losing his job. About not knowing how he'd make ends meet. She listened in silence. So what are you going to do? I don't know. Pick up more deliveries. Look for another part-time job. A long pause on the other end. Let's meet tomorrow. What? There's something I need to tell you. Tomorrow evening, 6 o'clock. In front of Tapgal Park in Jongno. Can you make it? Yes, I'll be there. Good. See you then. The call ended. Junhyuk stared at his phone. Why did she want to meet? What did she have to say? He had no idea, but strangely, he felt a little lighter. Just knowing that someone had listened made things feel a bit more bearable. That night, Junhyuk slept more deeply than he had in weeks. The next evening at 6, Junhyuk arrived in front of Tapgal Park. The late November wind cut through his thin jacket. He stood with his hands stuffed in his pockets, waiting for her. About 10 minutes later, a familiar figure appeared in the distance. The faded brown jacket, rubber shoes, same as always. Ma'am, you came. They sat side by side on a bench inside the park. Fallen leaves swirled around them in the wind. Ma'am, where have you been? I was worried when you didn't call. Here and there. She didn't elaborate. Junhyuk didn't push. On the phone yesterday, you said you had something to tell me. Yes. She reached into her cloth bag and pulled out an envelope. A thick white envelope. Here. What is it? Open it. Junhyuk opened the envelope. Inside was cash. Stacks of 10,000 won bills. He guessed there was at least 1,000,000 won in there. Ma'am, what is this? 3 million. Use it for whatever you need right now. 3 million won? Junhyuk was stunned. He shook his head and tried to hand it back. No, I can't take this. You don't have money either. Who says I don't? Look at you. Those clothes. Those shoes. You collapsed from malnutrition. She looked at him. Her expression was strange, like she wanted to say something, but was holding back. Don't worry about me. I'm fine. You're not fine. How could you possibly be fine? Junhyuk's voice rose. Days of frustration were bubbling to the surface. Ma'am, I feel so wronged right now. I got fired for something I didn't do. I couldn't even defend myself. And now you, someone who barely has enough for herself, is trying to give me money. What does that make me? I'm not some charity case. I didn't tell you what happened because I wanted your pity. He stood up from the bench. He took a deep breath and turned to walk away. Wait, her voice stopped him cold. Sit down. It was a command, not the feeble voice of a weary old woman. Junhyuk turned around. Her eyes were different now. They weren't cold, but they were firm, unyielding, impossible to refuse. Without realizing it, he sat back down. Let me finish. You think I'm doing this because I feel sorry for you? That some poor old lady is overreaching to help a struggling young man? Junhyuk didn't respond, but that was exactly what he'd been thinking. You're wrong. She pressed the envelope back into his hand. This is something I'm giving you. Not lending, not charity, just giving. Why? Because of your father. 25 years ago, he did the same for me. Junhyuk looked at her. Back then, I was finished. I had nothing. I was ready to end it all. Then your father showed up. A complete stranger. And he helped me without asking for anything in return. Her voice wavered. I said no. Just like you. I asked if he was pitying me. I told him I didn't need his charity. And do you know what he said? He said, it's not charity. It's an investment. If things work out for you later, you can pay me back then. Junhyuk's eyes burned. That sounded exactly like something his father would say. Those words saved me. I pulled myself together. I rebuilt my life. But I never got to repay your father. He was gone before I could. She took his hand. This is a debt I owe your father. With interest, it's far more than what's in that envelope. So take it. And later, when you're in a better place, do the same for someone else. That's how you repay me. Junhyuk sat still for a long time. The envelope felt heavy in his hand. Ma'am, yes. Thank you. He couldn't find any other words. She smiled faintly. If you're that grateful, buy me dinner. I'm hungry. Junhyuk laughed softly. He wiped the corners of his eyes with the back of his hand and stood up. What would you like to eat? Something warm. Soup, maybe. Gukbap. Okay, let's go. They walked out of the park together. The sun was setting. The wind was cold, but Junhyuk didn't feel it as much anymore. At a small gukbap restaurant, they sat across from each other. 2 steaming bowls arrived at the table. Ma'am, please enjoy. She began to eat. Slowly, quietly, Junhyuk picked up his own spoon. It was warm. The food. And something else too. Ma'am, yes? Can I see you again? She looked at him. Her eyes softened. Yes, let's meet again. That night, Junhyuk returned to his studio and opened the envelope. Exactly 3 million won. Where had this money come from? Was she really okay? He still had questions. But for now, gratitude outweighed everything else. Dad, he murmured, looking out the window. I didn't know you were that kind of person. I want to live like that too. No stars were visible, but he felt like his father was listening somewhere. The 3 million won gave Junhyuk room to breathe. He paid off his overdue rent and utility bills, and made a dent in his student loan interest. Things weren't comfortable, but the immediate crisis had passed. But the convenience store issue wasn't resolved. A few days later, Junhyuk received a call from an unknown number. Hello? Is this CO Junhyuk? This is the Jongno Police Department, Criminal Division. His heart sank. Yes, speaking. We're calling about the embezzlement case at the convenience store. The owner has filed a formal complaint. We need you to come in for questioning. The world went dark. The manager had said he wouldn't report it, but he did anyway. I really didn't do it. If you look at the CCTV footage closely, that'll be addressed during the investigation. Can you come in tomorrow at 2 p.m.? After hanging up, Junhyuk stood frozen for a long time. What now? What was he supposed to do? If he had a police record, it would follow him everywhere, even if he was eventually cleared. He was a senior, about to graduate. This could destroy everything. That evening, while making deliveries, Junhyuk pulled over in a quiet alley. He looked up at the sky. What would his father have done? What would he have said? No answer came. The next day, Junhyuk went to the police station. The detective showed him the CCTV footage. On the screen, Junhyuk was seen opening the cash register and taking something out, but the quality was too poor to tell what it was. What is that? I was sorting coins. Some of them were mixed up, so I separated them. How can you prove that? Junhyuk had nothing to say. There was no evidence. The manager claimed he stole money. Junhyuk claimed he didn't. That was all there was. We'll proceed with this as a witness interview for now. If further investigation is needed, we'll contact you. Leaving the station, Junhyuk's legs gave out. He collapsed onto a bench under a tree. That's when his phone rang. It was her. Hello? Where are you? Jongno. I just left the police station. Silence on the other end. What happened? Junhyuk told her everything. The complaint, the interrogation, the lack of evidence, how hopeless it all felt. She listened without interrupting. Stay there. I'm coming. What? Where? Where exactly are you right now? The bus stop in front of the station. Don't move. I'll be there in 30 minutes. The line went dead. Junhyuk frowned in confusion. Why was she coming? 30 minutes later, a familiar figure appeared. The faded brown jacket, rubber shoes. But something was different today. Behind her walked a man in a black suit. Ma'am, come with me. She led Junhyuk into a nearby cafe. The man in the suit followed. They sat at a table. Sit. Junhyuk sat. The man beside her handed him a business card. Jongdu Law Firm. Attorney Park Jinwoo. A lawyer? Yes. She spoke evenly. He's going to take your case. What? I can't afford a lawyer. I'm paying for it. Junhyuk's eyes went wide. Money again. No. You already gave me 3 million won. I can't accept more. Be quiet. Her voice was sharp. This isn't about money. You can't be wrongly punished. Not the son of that man. The lawyer interjected. Mr. CO, could you walk me through the situation? You mentioned there's CCTV footage. Can we obtain the original? Junhyuk looked back and forth between the two of them. He couldn't make sense of any of this. Ma'am, wait. Who is this person? How did you? I called him. You called him? How? She met his eyes. I haven't told you yet. About who I am. Who I really am. She slowly reached into her jacket and pulled something out. A business card. Junhyuk took it. The moment he read the words, he forgot how to breathe. Seongjin Group. Chairwoman Yoon Jung-hee. Seongjin Group. A top 10 conglomerate with subsidiaries in construction, retail, and finance. This is. What? That's me. Junhyuk stared at her. The worn jacket. The rubber shoes. The deeply lined face. Nothing about her looked like a corporate chairwoman. You're joking, right? You're messing with me? Have I ever lied to you? Junhyuk couldn't answer. His mind went completely blank. Why? Why do you go around looking like this? I have my reasons. I'll tell you later. Chairwoman Yoon, no longer just the old woman, nodded toward the lawyer. Take care of this boy's case first. Yes, Chairwoman. Junhyuk sat in stunned silence. The world had just turned upside down. The frail old woman in shabby clothes was the head of a major corporation. What on earth was happening? Even after leaving the cafe, Junhyuk couldn't collect himself. He walked beside her Chairwoman Yoon and finally spoke. Chairwoman, just call me, ma'am. It's easier. Ma'am, are you really the chairwoman? You saw the card. I still can't believe it. Why do you dress like that? Why did you? She stopped walking. She turned to face him. Let's find a place to sit. This will take a while. They walked into a small park nearby and sat on a bench. The story from 25 years ago. You remember? Yes. You said my father helped you. That's right. Back then, I had nothing. She stared into the distance as she spoke. My husband's business failed. He ran off. I was buried in debt. I lost my home. My family scattered. I was ready to die on the street. Then your father appeared. He helped me for no reason. He gave me money, found me a place to stay. For over a month, Junhyuk listened in silence. That kindness helped me get back on my feet. I started small, just a tiny shop. But things kept going well. I got lucky. So, that's how Seongjin Group started. Yes, it took 30 years. But the bigger it got, the fewer real people I had around me. Her voice carried a quiet ache. Everyone only sees my money. Not me, my son, my daughter-in-law, my grandchildren, none of them care who I really am. So sometimes I dress like this, like an ordinary old woman. It's the only way I can see who people really are. Junhyuk understood now why she dressed the way she did. But why me? Out of everyone, why did you come to me? She looked at him. I wanted to repay your father. But I was too late. By the time I found him, he was already gone. So I looked for you. I wanted to see what kind of person your father's son was. That night, were you waiting for me on purpose? No, that part was pure chance. But when you picked up my bag, knelt down to put my shoe on, I knew. This boy is just like his father. Junhyuk's eyes stung. I kept watching you after that. How you lived, how you worked. I saw you push through, no matter how hard things got. I wanted to help, but I knew you'd refuse. Just like your father. So I took my time. She held his hand. This case is the same. I won't let you be wrongly accused. Your father wasn't that kind of man. And his son shouldn't have to suffer for something he didn't do. Junhyuk sat in silence for a long time. Everything was rushing in at once. Ma'am, yes, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. She smiled. For the first time, it was warm. Just live well. That's all I need in return. And later, when things are better, do the same for someone else. That's how you pay it back. Junhyuk nodded. He couldn't speak. Instead, he held her hand tightly. The sun was setting. Golden light spread through the park. Ma'am, yes? Can I keep coming to see you? I want to be there for you too. Her eyes glistened. Yes, come whenever you want. After that day, Junhyuk's life began to change. The lawyer secured the original CCTV footage. Analysis confirmed there was no evidence Junhyuk had stolen anything. In fact, it revealed the manager had been trying to cover up another employee's theft by framing him. The complaint was dropped. The manager was charged with false accusation. Junhyuk received his unpaid wages. Everything moved fast. Having a conglomerate chairwoman behind him changed everything. But Junhyuk felt uneasy about it. Ma'am, I wanted to solve this on my own. One day, he said as much. She tilted her head. Why? If I rely on your help like this, it's not really something I did. That's foolish talk. She lightly tapped his head. Knowing when to accept help is a skill too. No one can do everything alone. What matters is what you do with the help you receive. Your father did the same. He accepted my help and used it to get back on his feet. Then he helped others. Junhyuk thought about her words. I understand. Good. Accept help when you need it. Give it when you can. That's life. Her words settled deep inside him. December arrived. The winter wind was bitter, but Junhyuk's heart was warm. With the convenience store case behind him, he found a new part-time job, an office assistant at a small publishing house. The pay was less than deliveries, but it was steady. He met with her once a week. They'd eat gukbap at the restaurant near Tapgal Park and take walks through the park. How's school? I graduate next month. Haven't figured out a job yet, though. No rush. Take your time. She still wore the same faded jacket and rubber shoes. Whenever Junhyuk offered to buy her new clothes, she refused. This is comfortable. I'm used to it. But it's cold. It's fine. At my age, a little cold doesn't matter. One day, she asked him a question. How's your mother doing? Good. She said business at the restaurant has picked up a little. That's a relief. You should go visit her before graduation. Yeah, I should. Junhyuk suddenly felt curious. Ma'am, what about your family? You mentioned you have a son and grandchildren. Her expression flickered. I do. You don't live together? I live at my son's house. But, she trailed off. They don't really like having me around. Except for the money. They're just waiting for me to die so they can inherit. As long as I'm alive, I'm just a nuisance. Her voice was calm, but underneath it, there was a deep loneliness. That's why I go out like this. Staying home suffocates me. Junhyuk reached out and held her hand. Ma'am, yes? I don't need your money. I just like you. She looked at him. Her eyes brimmed with tears. That's foolish talk. I mean it. After my father, you're the person I'm most grateful for. I'll keep coming. We'll eat gutbap and take walks. As long as you'll let me. She turned her head. It seemed like she was trying to hide her tears. You don't need my permission. If you want to come, come. I will. That evening, Junhyuk called his mother. Mom. Yes, Junhyuk. What's going on? I'm coming down next week. I want to see you before the graduation ceremony. He heard her laughing through the phone. Really? Oh, wonderful. What do you want to eat? Tell me. Your kimchi jjigae. I've been craving it. Okay, I'll make it just the way you like. After hanging up, Junhyuk gazed out the window. A few stars dotted the winter sky. He thought of his father. What would he have said? What expression would he have made hearing about the chairwoman? Dad, am I doing okay? There was no answer, but it was all right. It felt like his father was watching over him. In mid-December, Junhyuk took a bus to Jecheon, a small rural town, where his mother ran her little restaurant. Mom, oh, my boy. His mother pulled him into a tight hug. Her warmth wrapped around him. You've gotten taller and thinner. I've been busy, but I've been eating fine. Liar, I can see it in your face. They had kimchi jjigae at her restaurant. It was delicious, a taste he could never find in Seoul, his mother's hands. Mom, yes? Tell me about Dad, from the old days. She looked surprised. Out of nowhere? Just curious. She thought for a moment, then spoke. Your father was a good man. He loved helping people. Sometimes too much. I'd scold him for it. Too much? We barely had enough for ourselves, but he'd lend money to others. Money he'd never get back. Junhyuk thought of the chairwoman. But your father used to say, people have to help people. That's what living is. That's how he was. I didn't understand at first. But after he passed, I got it. He lived without regrets because he lived that way. Junhyuk's eyes stung. Mom, I want to live like that too. Like Dad. She took his hand. Good. That's what your father would have wanted. That night, Junhyuk sat before his father's memorial portrait. He lit incense and bowed his head. Dad, I'm living well. Thanks to you, I met someone wonderful. His father smiled in the photograph. Just as he always had. Thank you. And I miss you. Tears fell, but they weren't entirely sad. They were warm. In February, Junhyuk graduated. His mother came to the ceremony. And one other person. A faded brown jacket, rubber shoes. It was her. Ma'am, how did you? You said it was your graduation. I wanted to see. Junhyuk smiled and introduced his mother to her. Mom, this is the person I told you about. Ah, Junhyuk's benefactor. Thank you so much. His mother bowed deeply. The chairwoman waved her off. No, it's me who's received more from Junhyuk. His mother looked a bit surprised by her shabby appearance. Junhyuk had intentionally not mentioned who she really was. And she wouldn't have wanted him to. After the ceremony, the three of them ate together. At a small Korean restaurant near campus. Junhyuk, have you figured out a job yet? His mother asked. Not yet, but I did interview at one place. Hoping to hear back. What kind of place? A small social enterprise. They help young people in difficult situations. His mother nodded. The chairwoman listened quietly. The pay probably won't be great. But I really want to do it. Then do it. You can always make money later. After the meal, his mother headed back to Jecheon. Junhyuk and the chairwoman were left alone. Ma'am, let's walk slowly. Okay. They strolled through the campus. The February wind was still cold, but there was a hint of spring in the air. Junhyuk, yes? Did you hear back from them? Not yet. They said they'd call next week. You'll get it. How do you know? She smiled. I just do. A few days later, Junhyuk got the call. He was hired. As soon as he hung up, he called her. Ma'am, I got the job. Good. Congratulations. It's all thanks to you. Really? Nonsense. You earned it. Her voice was warm. Congratulations, Junhyuk. Thank you. And please take care of yourself. I'll come visit soon. Alright, I'll be waiting. In March, Junhyuk started his new job. A small office, modest pay. But his heart was light. His first project was mentoring young people struggling financially to find employment. He drew on his own experience and worked hard. A month later, he went to see her. In front of Tapgal Park, their usual spot, she was sitting on a bench. Today, instead of the jacket, she wore a light spring coat. Still old, but a little lighter. Ma'am, you came. They sat side by side, letting the warm spring breeze wash over them. How's work? Tough, but good. It feels meaningful. That's what matters. She looked up at the sky. White clouds drifted slowly across the blue. Junhyuk, yes? Your father said something to me 25 years ago. Ma'am, nobody can live alone. You receive, and you give. You give, and you receive. That's life. That's what he said. Junhyuk listened quietly. I didn't understand it back then. But now I do. What your father gave me, I gave to you. And one day, you'll give it to someone else. That's how it continues. That's life. That's what it means to be human. She looked at him. Her wrinkled face broke into a gentle smile. Your father planted a seed. And it's growing through you. That's enough for me. Junhyuk's eyes welled up. Ma'am, yes, I'll become someone like you. Like my father. Someone who gives what he's received. Good. That's all I need. They sat in silence for a long time. A warm breeze rustled through the park. In the distance, children laughed. Birds sang. Flowers were beginning to bloom. Junhyuk thought to himself his father's small act of kindness, from 25 years ago, had come back to him. And now it was his turn to pass it on. So that's what life is. We're not alone. Ma'am, next time let's go see the cherry blossoms. When they bloom. Yes, let's go together. He held her hand. Thin and wrinkled, but warm. Spring was arriving. A new beginning. If today's story brought you a bit of comfort, please consider subscribing, liking the video, and turning on notifications, so I can continue sharing heartfelt stories by your side. Wishing you days filled with nothing but happiness. Leave a greeting in the comments, and I'll wish for all good fortune to come your way. Wishing you good health and happiness today as well. Before the story begins, please consider subscribing, liking, and turning on notifications. Your support means a lot. If you leave a greeting in the comments, I sincerely hope every good fortune finds its way to you.